President Richardson.
Here.
Trustee Burt.
Here.
Trustee Mitchell.
Here.
Trustee Rigby.
Here.
Trustee Schaller.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 4 this evening is approval of the minutes, both from the special meeting of the board on November 2nd and the regular board meeting on November 7th. Are there edits or questions or changes for the clerk? There being none, Chair will ask for a motion to approve with a request that the record remain open for an additional 5 days in case people have typos and necessary conforming amendments. May I have that motion? So moved by Trustee Schaller, second please by Trustee Thompson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tonight under agenda item 5, President's Remarks, got a couple of guests here tonight. We have both Ryan McLaughlin from Max Strategies and Don Storino Jr. from Fidelity Consulting Group. They work for the village in communications and in advocacy. I think we've had our conversation previously, so I will ask Don to be on standby, and Ryan as well, so that we can ask Janet Agnoletti, the Executive Director of the Barrington Area Council of Governments, to come forward and talk a little bit about the 2018 BACOG legislative platform. And Janet, maybe during the Q&A, Donnie and Ryan can chime in where they'd like as well. So thank you for being here, all of you.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. I was just at a wonderful Christmas party, holiday party with Representative Nick Sauer, or our representative.
Yes, and let me interrupt you for the record. This meeting was scheduled a year in advance, and I want to make sure the camera's getting this. It was scheduled a year in advance, and so next year I'll ask him to look at a calendar 11 months ahead of time and plan this for another evening.
Nevertheless, Representative Sauer has a message for the board.
Yeah, I bet he's got a different one for me than he has for the rest of you.
No, very simple. Have a short meeting and come over and join them before the party.
Yeah, there's not as much chance of that.
I'm sorry. Well, I would like to talk about legislative issues tonight. I know you have the legislative platform of BACOG on your agenda. I hope it meets with your approval. I'm going to give you honestly this many notes on the bills that were important in the entire legislative session this past year. Some of the ones that we followed. We probably followed 50, 60 bills at the BACOG office. Bills that affect local governments, municipalities and townships. And all the ones I'm going to talk about are bills that we took action on from the BACOG office. We submitted witness slips, made phone calls, sent emails to our legislators, and we met with legislators in Springfield as well. They're all bills that fall somewhere under the basic tenets of our legislative platform. And I'm not going to belabor the legislative platform. It's very similar to the last few years because, by the way, the issues before the state are very similar to those of the past few years. But I'll get there in a minute. So what we watched all session was January through, I think it was June this year, was the budget, first of all. So the budget finally passed in, I want to say it was about July, I think. $36.5 billion, which was $2 to $3 billion short of projected revenues, passed with a 10% reduction in local government distributed fund, LGDF, and a diversion of almost $300 million in the corporate personal property replacement tax, which affects our townships more than our villages, but that LGDF number, of course, is significantly greater than that. We also saw 4 bills, just 4 of the ones that are relevant that I think are the most important, either pass or die during the spring session that ended in the summer. So House Bill 547 was a good bill. It increased the amount where a local government must bid or have a 4/5 majority approval. It increased the amount triggering that from $20,000 to $25,000. An improvement in the labor area. And again, we worked on all of these. House Bill 2493, responsible bidder, in effect would require local governments to contract only with union shops for all public work. It died, which is good. That was considered a success for us as local governments. Senate Bill 1821, now this is one that you may not have heard about. It would have eliminated the state licensing for professional geologists. For BACOG, that's a big deal. That means we wouldn't have the assurance of a license to go with an individual geologist or a small company. So I worked very hard with the state geologists, and we got, with Senator Althoff, it was for Bill, we got just the geologist licensing back into the state law. It was being eliminated along with a bunch of other professional licenses. So that was a success. House Bill 2958, which was originally written as a ban on coal tar sealants. We got the bill amended with Representative Fine to include other high PAH sealants, which I know you're familiar with because that's the work we've done at BACOG. It's not just coal tar, it's other types of sealants. That bill did not pass. Eventually, right before end of session, it was amended to only include specific authority for non-home rule communities to adopt their own bans. And that would have been a very good thing for at least half of our members. It still didn't pass, but it made a lot of progress this year, so we'll just be hopeful.
Okay, Janet worked hard on this. The coal tar, Paula McConnell, the mayor in South Barrington, really took this took responsibility for the leadership here. The concern was that these are known carcinogens.
Absolutely.
They're not possible or probable carcinogens. They're known carcinogens. And the research was, I spent a lot of time on similar kinds of issues for things that are not known but rather possible. So I've gotten to know this space a little bit. My hesitation has been, and this board knows that, I don't like to pass ordinances for enforcement that I know I have no ability to enforce. It's other than the, oh, I feel better. In fact, all it does is chase the responsible applicators out of the business because they'll follow the ordinance, and the fly-by-nights who will say, here's $20 for your driveway, will know they'll never get caught because they know we're not going to respond. So what we did was education, and we did a lot of, my own HOA adopted a resolution internally that we're not going to use those kinds of seals. We're going to use alternatives, and we built it into the contract for the guy who does all the driveways in our neighborhood. So that's a great BACOG story, and I appreciate the fact that we spent so much time on it.
Yeah, thank you. So on the coal tar sealant ban, but it's not a ban, locally with BACOG, all of our BACOG member governments, 8 of them, actually at the time 9 of them, agreed by consensus, by resolution, to not use these products, to eliminate their use on public properties that you own. So that piece was a fundamental piece, I think, that started the awareness, and it's great that Lake Barrington has picked it up and run with it and used it with your residents too, so thank you. Just 4 more bills. So from the veto session, there was action on bills that we were following. These are probably the more significant ones. Senate Bill 1451, the Small Cell Wireless Facilities Bill. Actually, it was negotiated for a very long time, all through session, all through the summer, all through veto session. The Senate and the House both passed it. It went back to the Senate for concurrence, but Senate President Cullerton filed a motion to reconsider, which is a procedural hold. Even though the bill has passed both houses, it could be released from that hold and go to the governor to be signed anytime. So that one, we're still kind of waiting to see what happens. We changed our position at BACOG from opposed to neutral due to the last negotiation that made it a better bill, even though we still don't really like the bill, but you know, there are other factors here like FCC regulations that can come out, we're probably going to agree on this anyway. So we did the best we could, and then eventually took no action on it from the BACOG. I was just said, well, we don't have a position anymore. Senate Bill 1905, BACOG did oppose. This would have created the Collective Bargaining Freedom Act, which contained criminal penalties and fines for local officials who adopt a right-to-work zone in their jurisdiction. You could go to jail. You could pay up to $2,500 in fines for taking
Just
that.
for a moment, you and I never got to do this. I'd like Mr. Bateman to take me back to law school on this. How can they criminalize an independent act of a home rule community? Well, I understand in a free country it's hard to do. Free country it's hard to do. I just make Storino's job a hell of a lot harder.
So the governor vetoed it, total veto, and his veto stood. Now, what we think might happen is it could be reintroduced in the 2018 session without the criminal penalty, and then it would have different chance at that point, but we will see. Senate Bill 1735, the short-term rentals bill, which would prohibit municipalities from regulating short-term rentals such as Airbnb. That stalled in the Senate, but it remains a concern for 2018. And by the way, the ones I say still are not really quite dead, those are referenced in our legislative platform for 2018, including this one. Senate Bill 851, the last one, a 2-year property tax freeze. And I know there may be some mixed opinion on this, but essentially the municipal part of the property tax bill is very small, and it pays for essential services for citizens, like residents, like snow plowing, garbage pickup, and road repair. So we oppose that. The House took, how that happened, because they passed it, but it's dead for now. The House took an unrelated bill that passed in the Senate, totally amended it, gutted it, and passed it to create a 2-year freeze. The Senate did concur, they had to concur, but they didn't take it up. So it is, again, it's dead for now, but will probably come back. The only other thing I'll mention in a topical area is that there were no groundwater environmental bills, even though that is very high and prominent in our legislative platform. But we did a lot of informing and educating this year with our legislators and also with the state administrative departments, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Prairie Research Institute director, the director of the State Water Survey, and the director of the State Geological Survey. We met with them in Springfield for a very substantial meeting. So we're trying to do the groundwork for something to happen down the road in groundwater to help support our programs here. I'm gonna give you the updates first, and then we'll go to the platform very briefly. You should have received the BACOG Legislative Action Report. It was sent with my monthly director's report in October, but your office has it if you want to see it again. But it kind of summarizes all of this except veto session. The General Assembly, will reconvene in January, and once they do, we're going to do a lobby day, to which you're all invited, and that will be, it was just set, the date set April 24th, 25th, 26th, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, probably leave Tuesday night, come back Thursday morning. And we have already set the date for our co-sponsored BACOG, Barrington Area Chamber of Commerce, and School District 220, Barrington Area Legislative Breakfast, and that will be next fall, almost a year from now, Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018. So you'll get more information about that down the road. On the platform, the premise of the platform is local control. That's the most important thing to us as local governments. The state would take our money, the state would give us unfunded mandates, the state would do all kinds of things, but what we say is we should be in control of the government here, this closest to the people. The first area on the platform is to protect local government revenues, and that deals with the LGDF and PDRT and motor fuel tax and all kinds of revenues that we stand to lose if we're not proactive or stand to see reduced. We do oppose modifications and freezes to PTEL, and we say to the General Assembly, you can help. You can help by lifting unfunded mandates. The next major item is reforming labor standards, and this one is pretty much the same as in the past. Reform the definition for catastrophic injury. Maybe we can make prevailing wage apply to a fewer categories of work or low levels of work. The third category is support statewide public pension reform. Well, that was all overturned about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, so that we could not, the General Assembly could not actually carry through with the reform that they were proposing. But at this point, we're saying, please continue to seek a reform, seek a solution to a situation that has our state and our local government so much in debt. And we're urging that in the short term, before they figure out the long-term real solution, that they consolidate, or they allow a consolidation of the 658 locally held public safety pension funds into one statewide fund that would be more like, operate more like Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is a very stable fund. The next category is protect environmental resources and open space and groundwater. And basically what we're looking for is support in resources or assistance, financial assistance, to support our monitoring program, because we're a proactive area and progressive and doing the work, but really the state should be putting resources into it. There are wells that we're monitoring, for example. And almost the last item is support local and regional land use, planning and zoning. Again, this is basically about conflicts between municipalities and unincorporated areas. It's about land use, it's about zoning, and letting us and our residents articulate what they want and let us implement those ordinances. And the last thing is improving the transportation system. Again, the same as in the past, support with money throughout 14 grade separation and support funding for the extension of Highway 53 in Lake County. So that is the legislative platform for next year. There was a lot of word tweaking and a few additional items. The rental rehab bill, rental regulation bill, short-term rental regulation bill is in there. The small cell is implied in there. Probably be decided before we get to session, but anyway. So everything that is hanging is in here, and everything that is really important that still hasn't been resolved is in here too.
We had a committee of the whole prior to this, and Donnie was kind enough to go over a number of things similar. I think the big thing that the platform gets right is we'd like to control as much of our destiny as we possibly can, and we resist the urge of the federal or the state or the county government to usurp our responsibility and our authority. I believe we're the most accountable level of government, because we're the ones that they can yell at in the grocery store. And I think that's probably the most important thing, as we were talking earlier. The divisions in the state are not going to get less, they're going to get worse. And so communities like this are increasingly vulnerable to hyperbole and exaggerated rhetoric. Since I'm capable of that in private settings, I can recognize it when I see it. So please know that you have certainly my strong continued support. Do you want to quickly add anything else before I go around and ask the trustees? Let me start with Trustee Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Janet, for all you've done to keep us in effect. And it was interesting, I pulled out the legislative agenda again, and I thought, oh, no, this is last year's. No, that's the year, it's the year before. It's the year before. And I think we had this conversation earlier with Mr. Storino. It is just an uphill battle sometimes, and I do appreciate the fact that BayCog folks and BayCog office in particular have done a great job keeping us up on these things. I mean, each one of these, although seeming somewhat obscure, they come back to the local area. The short-term rental issue is one that we dealt with and would not be happy. The things about subjecting ourselves to arrest and passing different things, it just makes no sense. So I do appreciate all that you do, and just keep going. Thank you.
And by the way, I should mention, thank you for saying those very nice things. I should mention that, of course, Chris Mitchell and Jim Thompson have been on the legislative committee, and in Chris's absence, Jim has been coming in. I appreciate your participation and contributing ideas and thoughts about how we need to move forward. Thank you all.
We only do the best.
Trustee Rigby, questions or comments on the left?
Janet, thanks for your presentation. It's enlightening. How could I find access to, in addition to coal tar covering, where can we find the other substances that are carcinogenic that are possibly used?
Well, in the most recent information is a reprint of the BayCog brochure on pavement sealants, and it has a list of both the coal tar chemical abstract service numbers and the terminology used in the product labeling. But it was just revised last year, and it has now a list of the CAS numbers for other high pH sealants and their terminology, things like steam cracked asphalt, asphalt bottoms, and some very ethylene bottoms and very strange things. It also contained, probably in the original bill, that Representative Fine introduced, because she picked up all of our language and put it, with the support of the Sierra Club, by the way, and I know you work with Cindy Scrooge at Sierra Club a lot, she put it in her bill, and that would have been, it's probably still on, I'm sure it's still online. So where didn't I talk about it? Oh, here.
If it's
House Bill 2958.
Okay. Is it on your website?
Pardon me?
Yeah, is it online on your website?
No, it would be on the ilga.gov website, which is the Illinois General
Yeah.
Assembly. And so you would be looking for Amendment 1, House Bill 2958, Amendment 1. Amendment 2. was-
Janet, in the interest of making it easier for Trustee Rigby,
I can just send it.
just email that information.
But your revised flyer is on your website.
What is?
Your revised flyer.
Oh, it is. You're
That's
right.
what it
Oh,
says.
oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
You know what we would
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
website.
And if we don't already have, I think we have a link on our website to it, but we'll double check that tomorrow to make sure we got the most recent thing.
Okay, Trustee Schaller.
I'm just fortunate that BayCog is what BayCog is, and that we get to participate in group therapy sometimes. And as well as the legislative part of it, even the emergency planning that we're working at as well. Just some good things for all of us, so. Get that ninth one back in, right?
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And yes, thanks to Trustee Shaw for serving on the Emergency Management Planning Group. And we will be having the next tabletop exercise on January
31st.
31st. That's 8 a.m. You're all invited.
That's a very useful exercise too, because you hear about the crises with the hurricanes. It's a reminder that a tornado or something else can happen here. Trustee Burke.
Echoing my colleagues' comments about BayCog, we're fortunate to have that, to bring voice to the region and help us do that in an efficient and effective way. We're lucky to have you leading us. And I'm appreciative of my colleagues up here who spend a lot of time kind of quietly behind the scenes supporting that as well. So it's a great collective group effort.
Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just want, I was going to say everything they've said, so, but especially because this is a very difficult time in Springfield, and what you and BayCog are doing are really helpful to us, and we sincerely appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what else is really important in Springfield? That you all come to a lobby day.
What is the next one?
That's
April
April
24th,
24th,
25th,
26th.
That's the third time she said that.
Yeah, right. You were
Just a
Oh, second, sorry. Felt like 3 times.
But we would love for all of you to come. It is the most important thing. We met with the governor the last 2 years we were there.
It's a cheesehead problem.
And with that report, and there being no further questions for our guest, Chair would like a motion to pass resolution number 2017-R-22. Thank you, Lisa, for putting it in.
It's,
22 is what you had, right?
actually, it's 28, it put that in the wrong spot, sorry.
That's okay. 28, thank you. That's what we asked. A resolution concerning the BayCog 2018, not 17, legislative platform. May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Rigby, seconded by Trustee Mitchell. The clerk, please call the roll.
Sorry, I was writing.
Rigby moved,
Thank you.
Mitchell seconded.
Trustee Rigby? Aye. Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Janet, for the continued good work. And we're sorry that we caused you and Donnie to miss next Sal's Christmas party. I'm not sorry.
I don't think it's
I'm
over
not
yet.
sorry. I'm not sorry. We had to miss it, you did too. The chair would like to move to agenda item 5D, proclamation honoring the Wakanda Fire Chief, Mike Law. And the administrator has been kind enough to work with me getting something put together that's appropriate. I'd like to yield to her for any comments first before I read the proclamation. Or Trustee Schaller.
Actually, I was going to defer to Trustee Schaller.
My mistake, I apologize. Trustee Schaller.
The battalion chief could come up and at least who is present here from the Wakanda Fire District, who will actually make this presentation. The date is actually, his retirement is December 15th. The proclamation says January 1st, so you might want to change the date to December 15th. But it's whereas Chief Mike Wall began his distinguished career in the fire service in 1984 as a firefighter paramedic and has since served the district in many different roles and capacities. Whereas he was promoted to lieutenant in 1994, was assigned as lieutenant, code enforcement, public education coordinator for the fire district in 1999. Whereas Chief Wall was promoted to captain in 2007, promoted to deputy chief of administration in 2012, became the fire chief in 2015. Whereas Chief Wall also served in other capacities, including director of the Emergency Management Agency for the Village of Wakanda, part of the Emergency Services Management Team, and the Illinois Incident Management Team. Whereas he was also involved in specialized teams, including Hazardous Materials Team, served as the coordinator for the dive and side scan sonar teams. And whereas Chief Mike Wall will be retiring from the Wakanda Fire District after 34 years of service on December 15, 2017, therefore be it resolved by the President, Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington, Lake County, Illinois, the Village of Lake Barrington honor Chief Mike Wall for his commendable dedication to the fire service.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Scheller. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, by Trustee Rigby. I think that was close.
would the battalion chief like to say anything in his...
Before we call it.
No, I'm sure he'd be honored. He's enjoyed all the villages we serve, all of our citizens. I think it's hard for him to leave, but at the same time, it's time for him to move on to another chapter in his life and leave the reins to somebody else, but I'm sure he'd be honored to hear you guys read that. Thank you.
For that, and as part of the village, my first involvement was to try to get the certified emergency response team training, and Chief Wall oversaw that at that time a couple of years ago. And after a few of us completed the course, I decided I would have been more of a hazard than anything, so I took the award, but never have done anything with it.
That group has grown quite a bit.
It's a
They
great
do a lot of it
organization.
now.
Yeah, it's a great organization. And the chief is quite a chief, so.
Yeah, he is. He'll be missed.
So it'll be on Friday, December 15th, and I think everyone is invited to that. Okay. Up at Wakanda Fire District, Station Number 1, right on Wakanda, Main Street, and 176.
3 p.m. to about 4:30, and then this is walkout, so there'll be some presentations, and you're all welcome to attend. Anybody's welcome to attend. Usually we get a pretty good crowd, which is nice.
What's the significance of the walkout?
I'm sure there's other fire departments that have done it. We started doing it probably 5 years ago. Our dispatch center sets off a tone. It's your last call. All of our pagers go off, the radios overhead go out, and it's kind of like their last call to duty, so to speak. And they come out the door, proceed down a row of everybody who's there, which is usually everybody, shakes everybody's hand, says their good goodbyes, and then gets on whatever piece of fire apparatus of their choice, which whoever they choose to drive it, and they give them a ride home. And we started doing that about 5 years, and most of the neighboring departments have picked up on it and started something, so it's a nice way to say goodbye.
Better than an Uber.
It's a real nice way to say goodbye to someone after years of service.
Yeah, it's a nice ceremony. It was there.
Well, we have cake and coffee.
It's cheap. Yeah, it's nice. So,
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And Chief, we continue to value the relationship. Look forward to continuing to work with you all.
Thank you. We'll like to work with you.
Are there further comments for the battalion chief that anyone would like to offer?
Other than the Wakanda Fire Department said January 1st, so he might have to stick around for a couple more weeks.
Now, I think the January 1st thing is he's actually, his true retirement date is January 1st, but his last day working is December 15th, so he's using vacation time for January. So his official retirement date is January 1st, so that'll be all right.
Okay.
His last day of work is December 15th.
around for another 2 weeks.
Thank you, Chief. very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You too.
Agenda item 6. I'm sorry?
We need to.
We started.
We started.
I've got an attention span of a gnat. Moved by Trustee Rigby, seconded by, or moved by Trustee Salver, seconded by Trustee Rigby. The clerk will now please call the roll.
Trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Rigby.
Aye.
Trustee Burt.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you all. Before we move to the next item on the agenda, I know we have someone here from Bernardi this evening, and why don't we move that presentation up, Karen, so that he does not have to wait here all night.
Thank you.
So- And our treasurer is going to co-present, I understand.
Correct, I will introduce Matt Bernardi. Just a little bit of history. The summer of 2015, we had a lot of conversations about our cash balances. They were basically in bank accounts. We went out, looked at a couple of different investment firms, and in July of 2015, hired Bernardi Securities to invest our cash into bond portfolios. And currently, right now, we have about $1.7 million in those portfolios between the general fund and the water sewer fund. Just to give you a little sense of perspective, in total, the village owns about $4.1 million in what I would call cash or securities. 1.7, as I mentioned, at Bernardi. There's about 2.3 at Barrington Bank, of which 1.7 is in money markets, about 580,000 in checking, and Illinois funds, there are $64,000 currently in there. Barrington Bank is paying between 50 basis points and 75 basis points, which is 0.75%. Illinois funds is doing better, about 1%. This year, we've earned about 1.6% on our bond fund at 1.6, 1.7, but Matt can be much more specific. So I'd like to introduce Matt, bring him up here. He was here last year, if you recall, and he's here again this year.
Thanks, Peggy. Hello. You should all have the presentation given to you. Just briefly before I get into the portfolio, I'm Matt Bernardi. I am your client relationship manager. I am essentially the conduit of communication, your complaints, your goals, your general parameters you're looking for the rest of the investment team. The firm we're dedicated to our specialty municipal bond portfolio management. This portfolio is all taxable municipal bonds with a little bit of exposure to CDs. Our firm has been growing steady but slowly as the municipal bond market grows typically. We're just under $2 billion in assets under management. We are dedicated to the specialty, and we will remain so into the future. Just a couple slides overviewing the firm. Slide 5 is the general team that is overseeing the portfolio. We have 3 portfolio managers, 2 credit analysts, and 4 traders. The portfolio managers bring the whole process together. The traders source the bonds, and the credit analysts are the ones betting the credit at the onset before the traders even look to discover what yield is best for the portfolio. Getting into the portfolio, I laid out a summary page on slide 7. The portfolio has performed very well. Performance in and of itself has been solid, but more importantly, especially relative to the benchmark. The portfolio is a laddered portfolio. The average maturity is about 1.4 years. We own bonds going out 3 years, so it's very liquid, and it is well set up for a rising rate environment, or if you have any short-term liquidity needs. In terms of the outlook of the market, and I'll get into more details about these bullet points throughout the presentation. Municipal bonds still offer attractive yield spreads compared to CDs and especially treasuries, so we still see it as an attractive market. And the overall credit health of the market is stable. It's growing in line with the economy. The long-term economic outlook is probably a little bit less important for this portfolio, as it's a very short-term portfolio. Going on to slide 8, I've laid out performance for you. Since inception, the portfolios are up anywhere from 1.13 to 1.1% on an annualized basis. The total return is about 2.7% on average for both portfolios. We are up almost double compared to the benchmark. That's real money. On an annual basis, we've outperformed the benchmark by about just over $9,000 a year. So we've added a lot of value by embracing this strategy by buying taxable municipals. And like I noted earlier, there's still a lot of opportunity in the market. In terms of the composition of the portfolio on slide 9, the portfolios are mostly taxable municipal bonds. There is a little bit of CDs. CDs are FDIC insured until $250,000. The municipal bond exposure is very high grade, AA, AAA. The historical default rates in AA and AAA rated municipal bonds rounds to 0, especially over a 10-year time span, especially certainly over a 1.5-year time span, which is the average maturity. Going on to a couple slides forward, slide 11 gives you some insight into the ladder structure. There is ongoing liquidity. We like this structure for a number of reasons. It establishes discipline in terms of buying on the yield curve. We're not timing the market. We're not trying to pinpoint if the 3-year bond is more attractive than the 1-year bond or overloading one certain maturity. And most importantly, for local government funds, it enables ongoing liquidity. If there is some sort of emergency situation, if the state continues to deteriorate and cuts off your funds even more severely, you know that you have a certain amount of principal coming due every so often on top of coupon interest. But on top of that, this is not an illiquid portfolio. You don't own a house here. If you need to sell a portfolio over the course of a week, over the course of a couple of weeks, that can be done, and we can do that. We would prefer not to, but there is at least a natural cash flow structure to the ladder that enables you to adapt to any emergency type of situation. And so that really gets into the overviews, the composition of the portfolio. Are there any questions regarding how it's currently constructed?
I appreciate the hard work. I don't say this enough. Peggy here, she does a fabulous job.
I'm not managing the money.
Yeah, and I appreciate it an awful lot, because this is other people's money. It's taxpayers' money, and so we've got to be the most responsible we can be. And when we get good advice that enables us to succeed in a climate where these returns are not robust.
Yep.
I'm old enough to remember in 1981 when interest rates were at 18%.
What was your mortgage?
Yeah.
I don't understand how that worked.
I was a law student living in Malibu, California, so that was my mom and dad's problem.
What was the mortgage on the surfboard?
That's the dude. So I appreciate the hard work, and it really does make a difference because we have to, and the laddered approach is so responsible, and I like the taxable use of municipals. We get a little bit more, and it really helps, so I'm fundamentally aligned with it. I know that Debbie and Peggy work with Randy, who chairs the relevant committee, and I just think this is a great example of thoughtful stewardship, so thank you. I'll yield on my left to Trustee Bird for comment.
I just echo that. I remember when this came up, we were looking for any way to, we were reeling from, we had the advantages of favorable interest rates for a long time, generating revenue that was sort of taken for granted until that revenue stream went away. So every little bit helps us be better stewards of our money. So thanks to Peggy and to you for your help on this.
Thank you.
Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I echo that. Thank you very much. I have a question on page 9, the municipal credit ratings, the AA and the AAA. Just, we have minor AAA there. And just my question is, why is it so lean?
So that's on purpose. If you look at the historical default rates between a AA rated municipal bond and a AAA rated municipal bond, it's de minimis, it's insignificant. But when you buy a AA bond, you buy it at a higher yield, higher return. And so that's typical across all of our portfolios that you see high allocations to AA and AAA, but anywhere from 80 to 90% of that is typically AA rated. So that's certainly on purpose, and we like, buying a AAA. A lot of times a AAA municipal bond will trade in line with a treasury bond, sometimes through it, and that's not why you hired us to buy treasury
Can I interrupt
bonds.
just 1 second as well? This you understand the creditworthiness of a AA bond, that's what our bonds are rated. Our like Barrington bonds. Is a-
Thank you.
High credit.
Yeah.
Trustee Mitchell.
Thank you very much. I learn something every time I get one of your reports.
Okay.
I also appreciate the fact that when we come in and you've reorganized the portfolio for us. And I appreciate that because it saved us some money, definitely. And I appreciate seeing this so clearly when I spend some time today trying to find out where to park some cash. And looking at the taxable, the tax-free, and the municipal. And
Yeah, it's ever changing.
it is.
And that's, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
there is a little bit of CD exposure in here. And so, and the reason we bought CDs is because at the time, that in a given market, they yielded more. So we're not gonna go out and just buy municipals because that's what we know. If a CD yields more and it's FDIC insured, we're gonna wanna get the highest return for you. So we're not blindly buying municipals or various asset classes. It's not in
I appreciate that distinction as well, when, as I said, trying to study it today and figure out, well, you know, I get the tax advantage here, but then the yield and.
Yeah,
by the
tax
time-
rates might change.
By the time, exactly, that's, no one's gonna go on, so thank you very much, appreciate it.
Trustee Rigby.
A friend of mine calls these kind of investments sleep good money. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness in putting this portfolio together. Thank you.
Trustee Shaw.
And I'll just echo what everyone has said. Obviously, we appreciate the work and effort that you do on behalf of the village, and we make as much money as we possibly can, even though it's not a large amount, at least it's something
Yes.
better than going the other way, so thank you.
Over time, it adds up and it compounds.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you all for your questions and your comments. Would the treasurer like to add anything further?
I don't have much to add. I did, in the packet, there is a report. It's, if you can't sleep at night, you want to, sort of look at some numbers. It's basically just showing that I'm tracking the money each month. I'm watching what's going into which portion of the account. Keep track of it over the course of the years. I did mention in my verbiage that, we've addressed all the issues, primary objectives of the, the investment policy. So, legality was first, safety principle was second, liquidity, and then return, on investment. Those have all been addressed in that order. I think Matt was showing you too, we're in 12 different sectors, 18 different states. I can't think of a way to be much more diversified. They're $10,000 to $20,000 bonds, so I have absolutely not one worry on this account and happy to answer any more questions, but I think I don't really have much more to add other than that.
Further questions for the treasurer? Marvelous.
I appreciate the scarcity of Illinois state bonds. That's right.
Yeah, in fact, there is some opportunity there, though. There are, like this town, very well managed, and will be able to survive the oncoming continual fiscal deterioration. And you guys pay higher borrowing rates simply because you're in Illinois.
Yep.
And we like to own bonds like that.
General
Keep an eye
Electric was
on
going to move their corporate headquarters to Chicago until they looked at the state's books, and they said, we're not signing up for that liability.
General Motors said,
General Electric,
Oh,
when
General
they
Electric.
left Connecticut, which is in even worse shape,
yeah,
they said, we're not going to marry a potential public employee pension liability.
yeah.
There's consequences.
There is.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is the first opportunity in the agenda for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. Does anyone seek recognition? I see none, and I want to thank the new administrator for her creation of a very robust consent agenda. Number 7,
The omnibus consent.
the omnibus. The omnibus.
Know where that bus is going, but I want to get on it.
So, Chair will ask if any trustee wishes to call any of these items out of the consent agenda. There being none, Chair would like a motion to approve agenda item 7A. Move to approve by omnibus vote items on the consent agenda. B, motion to approve the Village Board and Plan Commission 2018 regular meeting schedule. C, motion to authorize the village administrator to enter into a services agreement with Blackboard Connect Incorporated for the CTY Connect rapid notification telephone system. D, motion to approve resolution number 2016-R-29. Thank you. A resolution to extend the term of a services agreement with Max Strategies to December 31st, 2018. E, motion to approve resolution number 2016, should those be 18 or 17? Under
Yes, they
E.
should. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Chair would like unanimous consent to consider those amendments. 2017-R-30, a resolution to extend the term of services agreement with Fidelity Consulting Group LLC to December 31, 2018. May I have a motion to consider in block?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Mitchell, seconded by Trustee Burke. Thank you both. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Rigby.
Aye.
Trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, thank you. Agenda item number 8 is the Treasurer's Report. Mrs. Hirsch.
We'll do tax levy next, 8B. So last month we did the tax levy resolution. This month before you is the tax levy ordinance. Once again, we are levying $488,000 and specifically being levied for police services in the village. Any questions regarding the ordinance or the levy?
You guys are going to get paid.
Do I continue then? Okay.
Please do.
I
I'm
apologize.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll continue then. Before you have the financial statements for 6 months ended October 31st, 2017. We are 50% through our fiscal year. We'll start by looking at the flash report on page 2. You'll see we have $2,323,000 worth of assets, liability $851,000, equity at $1,472,000. That equals to our assets at $2,323,000. Fiscal year-to-date revenue for 6 months is $1,464,000. Expenses are at $1,241,000, resulting in net income of $223,000. As we've done each month, we'll look below the bolded line where we've pulled out any extraordinary expenditures, so we come to our regular operations net income or loss. For the 6 months ended October 31st, 2017, we have $233,000. For the 6 months ended October 31st, 2016, we have $375,000. It's a difference of $142,000. We've talked each month about those differences. Typically, or for the most part, it's consulting, legal, and some engineering expenses driving that difference. It hasn't changed. As we've done each quarter, we do a summation of all the non-motor fuel tax road expenditures, and that is on page 24. To date, we just have one vendor that we have paid any road maintenance to, and that's Cooper Township Road District. You'll see, for 2 quarters, for the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year, we've spent $12,752 on Dover road maintenance, and as you go through the schedule, most of it is little, it's all small stuff, ditch stuff, ditch work, it's pretty much all ditch work. That's on page 24.
With this kind of work, Karen, that's listed here on page 24 for the roads district, I can show it up on the screen to you. How is that affected by these new standards that you were talking about earlier?
Very little, because most of those are things that are already, those are in our to Cuba Township. Any questions on that? Okay, we can flip forward to page 11 and 12. You'll see our actual budget report. Page 11, all the way down the bottom there, you'll see, page 11, I'm sorry, my numbers are off. Page 10. Total revenues, we're right at 58% actual to budget, so we're trending a little bit ahead. We have some, real estate tax we're done collecting for the year at 100%. We have a few things that are lagging. Income tax at 41% actual to budget. I don't see that picking up towards the end of the year. Our sales tax at 40% actual to budget. I'm assuming that with the opening of Speedway and Christmas sales, that'll ratchet back up, and we'll be back on track for that. Utility tax a little bit down, but once again, we're going into winter, and that should pick up a little bit as well. Page 11. Our expenditures are right at 50% actual budget. Some are above actual budget, some are below, but overall, we're coming in right at 50%. Any questions on the budget? Okay, let's go to the motor fuel tax on page 12. That fund is about $260,000 in cash available. In fiscal year 2019, we do have budgeted to spend $245,000 on road works. You'll see we'll be well able to do that with the funds that are growing in that fund. Page 16 is the water sewer fund. This month, we have net current assets of $1,385,000. We're building a nice reserve for any future improvements that are needed. In October, we did make bond principal and interest payments were made in October. Page 20 is the open space fund. You'll see we have $143,000 in that fund for ongoing maintenance work. If we were to do demolition, that's where the $25,000 would come from. And that's all that fund has. There's no other sources of income for that fund, so it's important to safeguard that amount that's left.
I'm sorry, Peggy, what did you just say about 25,000?
There's $143,000 in what it's called the open space operating. That's for the $25,000 if we were to demolish the house.
The checking account.
In that checking account.
Oh, okay.
We talked earlier, the house demolition would be about $25,000.
That's the number?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one estimate. That was just.
Okay. Thank you.
That is all I think my report. Are there any questions that you want to entertain? There's no unusual expenses this month in the warrants. I've checked those out.
Are there further questions for the treasurer at this time? Thank you again for the hard work on the insurance matter as well. Okay, there's nothing in here that I see.
On the financial planning calendar, I believe is attached. Are you taking, we was talking about that, Karen? I don't have that with me. I apologize. I didn't print that. The financial planning calendar.
Yes, that's
yeah.
included in the package.
Okay, I didn't have it printed. So.
Yeah, and that's what comes actually next.
Yes.
Yeah, in the agenda here. And I think we have the ordinance summary, and then we have the approval of financial statements. I thought we had to approve an appropriation for this.
That's down
The levy, keeping the levy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It is in 13A.
Thank you. Are there being no further comments or questions for the treasurer, then Chair would like to move to agenda item 8C. Actually, C, D, E, and F should actually be 1, 2, and 3 under C. So I'll just read them as they're listed here. Chair would like a motion to approve and block agenda items C through F. Approval of financial statements as of October 31st, 2017. Paid bills in the amount of $187,358.46 as listed on the accounts payable warrant A dated December 5, 2017. Paid bills in the amount of $15,263.44 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated December 5, 2017. And I'm sorry, and then board will be informed as to the financial planning calendar under E. So it's a motion to approve and block agenda items 8D and E, excuse me. Thank you for clarification. May I have that motion, please? So moved. By Trustee Mitchell, thank you. May I please have a second?
Second.
By Trustee Rigby, thank you both. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
Trustee Rigby,
Aye.
Trustee Burke,
Yes.
Trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson,
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, thank you very much. Agenda item 9 is the administrator's report. Ms. Dalton.
Sure. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the Economic Development Boot Camp I attended. It was hosted by the Lake County Partners in ComEd on November 16th. Topics covered included what the state of Illinois and Intersect, a new privately funded economic development organization, are doing to promote Illinois for business. In about 3 months, they'll have more information on their new website that even local municipalities can use. And some interesting takeaways I had from the speakers at this half-day summit were, and it was attended by brokers, attorneys, business people, as well as a lot of municipalities. But some interesting takeaways were that only 41% of businesses think incentives are somewhat important. They don't think of them as critical. That all incentives are about money. Sometimes they need other assistance. For example, maybe workforce transportation, immediate Illinois residency for in-state tuition. That can be a concern with some companies. And connections, this one I found I never even thought about, but their board wanting connections to local board positions on community colleges or hospitals. Hospitals were mentioned a couple of times as being an attractive thing to have nearby for certain businesses, something like that. And also that businesses appreciate business-friendly towns. And not so much a focus on what fees a municipality charges, but the process and the attitude and how to go about helping them problem solve if they're looking for a site for their businesses. So just so that you all know, I did give my card to the principal and managing broker for Starbucks, Jimmy John's, Chipotle's, Five Guys, and McAllister's. They call us. So, that's it.
Questions for the administrator? Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the clerk's report.
The constitutionally mandated decennial census will be starting soon. President Richardson recently signed the registration form for the Village of Lake Barrington to participate. This will help ensure that the U.S. Census Bureau has accurate information regarding municipality boundaries and appropriate address records. Regarding the holiday garbage and recycling schedule, the week of Christmas and New Year's garbage and recycling will be picked up a day later on Thursday. And also the free live Christmas tree pickup is scheduled for January 17th.
Good.
Kevin, can I
Questions
just
for-
add something?
Please.
The census is very important to us, just so everyone remembers that. So LGDF is based on our census, as is the motor fuel tax. So whatever we can do as a community to make sure everyone's counted, I think it's very important.
Yep. The U.S. Conference of Mayors actually provides a toolkit for communities. We used it at the last census, and we'll make sure to get it. It's a very big deal. And thank you for reiterating it, because it is. We're a small town, so we need everybody
It doesn't happen often.
Everybody counted, absolutely. Only once, but everybody counted. Agenda item 11 is the report of the standing committees, branding and communications. I don't have a report this month other than to say that I've been working with Brian McLaughlin and the staff on the opening for Speedway and how it relates to branding and communications. And have had conversations with Trustee Burke about some of the comms we want to do next year in the economic development area. 11B, Community Relations, Special Events, and Veterans Affairs. Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I am continuing my quest to arrange at least one village resident music night at Friar Farm. It's very slow going. Actually, I call it a slog. You know, these schools are hard to deal with, but I hope to have breaking news for our February meeting. Our village administrator, Carolyn Dalton-Lang, informed me we have a new business in the village, Big Wave Bounce Park on North Point Parkway next to the Canada Sportsplex. I've called and left a message for them because I'd like to go out and meet with them and also work on getting them to attend our January 2nd meeting.
Wonderful.
So I'm waiting to hear back from them. This Saturday, December 9th, 6th District Representative Peter J. Rossman will present the coveted Congressional Veterans Accommodation Award to LBS resident, retired Navy Captain Daphne Matthews. The award is bestowed to honor wartime sacrifices and peacetime community involvement. The ceremony begins at noon in the lodge at the shores, Lake Barrington Shores. Village residents, staff, and elected officials are invited. And yes, the veterans of LBS will be serving their famous event cake. Okay. The veterans of Lake Barrington Shores have a military speakers bureau, purpose of which is to present local residents a variety of military topics. Most recently, for example, the U.S. Coast Guard, a U.S. Coast Guard Chief Warrant Officer spoke about the Coast Guard's military history including their integration in our military forces during wartime, including right now. The veterans are planning events for 2018, a couple of which they're considering asking the village for use of Fire Farm. They have, and one is, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the Rolling Thunder motorcycle. Chapter 1 in Warrenville, Illinois. We're talking to them about possibly doing a parade and a show at Fire Farm in the spring. And then Operation Wild Horse in Wakanda. They're a IRS 501c3 not-for-profit. They have a system called HELP, H-E-L-P, Heroes Equine Leadership Program. It's designed to deal with military veterans who have some issues and working with horses. And they're also looking to see if possibly they would like to do so at Fire Farm. That's
Thank you very much. I look forward to
I'm sorry,
it.
one more thing, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm working with Max Strategies on a 2018 plan, 2 segments. One is businesses in the village, and it's rather involved, so I won't go to that, but also the third segment is residents. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful place to live, and we want to make certain that everyone within reading distance knows about it. So we'll be working on it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you at noon on Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
11C, Economic Development, Trustee Burke.
Thank you. It's been a busy few weeks. We've been talking about Speedway, officially the grand opening being this Thursday. Hoping all of you received your invitations, although there might have been a few bugs in that we have to check on. Trustee Schaller.
Yeah, the one, that's okay.
He's been good about.
I think he put us on the spam
That's
filter.
right.
I probably got spammed out, but
I filled up my tank the other day. I better drive around.
you're gonna have to drive around a bit. So that's officially at 10 a.m. on Thursday morning. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. We've invited members of the Planning Commission. We've invited some local business owners and a wide range of people. So we're looking for a big turnout, and you heard a lot about that. So we're looking forward to that and to its success. And obviously, been waiting for that revenue stream, which is so important to us, to begin to kick in. So we'll be excited to see that happening. Pepper Park Coffee just celebrated its 3rd anniversary, which seems hard to believe. It still seems brand new, but they have celebration on Sunday, so I attended that celebration. They had a little craft thing set up in the back room. It was very nice, very well attended. Free gifts for everybody who showed up that day, except for, I have a gift for you, President Richardson, from Kathleen Scott, since she asked me to give you a gift even though you didn't attend. She wanted you to have the free gift.
Well, that was because Trustee Burke didn't invite me.
Yeah.
He told me he was going, but he didn't say, would you like to join
That's
us?
accurate, yes.
Nor did you invite any of the other trustees.
Yeah, no, I can take it.
No, I don't think it was my job to invite. I think that was Ms. Scott's job to invite the rest of y'all. So that's exciting. And I think I'm not telling tales out of school, but they're on track in terms of where they had hoped to be in terms of their economic success. They're continuing to grow each year. They've got a loyal clientele. So that's great news, meaning they remain viable and they're on the schedule in terms of where they thought they would be from an overall financial liability standpoint. So that's good news because a lot of people have really, and a comment about Pepper Park in terms of, I think it's a wonderful thing that helps us promote our brand because it's our own unique, it's unique to us. And I love that it's called Pepper Park because I think prior to Pepper Park, Pepper Road per se didn't really have an identity. And I think because we say that so often and it's drawing people there. They did that event with the radio personality. I'm trying to think of when they did it. I don't know if anybody heard it, but
Tree Time did.
No, Tree Time did.
Yeah, on WGN.
Yeah, and Pepper Park, and Pepper Park, I guess there was, participated in that. And it was interesting because the radio personality, whoever he was alluding to the fact that he had been out to the area previously and how much it was clearly changing. And it was just interesting in an outsider's perspective. It's clear that the area continues to grow and looks very positive. So I think they've played a key role in success breeds success in the world of economic development.
Steve Richards is from GM. Has
Yes,
been there a couple of times to tree tag, and that's great publicity for us.
I know what it was. Pepper Park provided coffee and donuts and all that stuff, and so they got a plug.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And he was commenting about the differences of just seeing that there's work going on in growth and even just the general view. I mean, the path has gone in since then. Some aesthetic things have been done along that route, which is what we hope as you start to make that investment. People have made some investment in aesthetics of the area, controlling signage. It really happens gradually, but if you go back and think about what it looked like today, it's
And all the
profound.
tree times, all their TV commercials, everything, all mentioned Lake Barrington.
Yes.
Which is very
I love it.
nice.
Yes. That same day, I got a behind-the-scenes look at the new Lake Barrington Motorsports building over there on Hillside Court. Is it Court? Hillside. There's Hillside, and there's a little thing, I don't know if it's a court or not, but it is a dead end over there. And beautiful new building. So they've done a soft opening. They got their occupancy this past week. That means that right now they have started doing some of the maintenance work. Really, there was a gentleman who moved his service shop from one location to another. So that's the genesis, that's the seed of it. But now we've got all this more room, and that's something that's going to grow. But they work on classic cars and sports cars and restoration. It's pretty cool. They had some really cool cars in there when I was there. They had can't remember the year, I know GTO with the original window sticker in the window. I think it was, man, $3,200 somebody paid for that in 1968 or whatever it was. And he said it's worth probably about $300,000 right now. So pretty good investment.
Yeah.
Should have put a few in my garage. They've also informed me, and this is not telling tales out of school, but they have additional square footage there that at one point they thought they might use for storage of valuable cars, and now they're thinking they might actually get into sales of, and kind of go back to the model that Fidelity Motor Group used very successfully while it lasted. And they're assembling a team. They're looking at the viability of that. Karen and I have had a few conversations on that. They had questions about really their use permits and parking, and Mr. Bateman and I had some conversation. And so Ms. Scott is preparing some documentation to get back for our review, and then, like we normally would, either if they want to do a courtesy discussion with us or if they want to set up something with the planning commission. But their use already allowed for the sale of vehicles over there. We just need to verify, a few elements of that, right? But that could be very exciting because we knew that was a very nice revenue stream before, and they've given some preliminary numbers that aren't quite as aggressive as what Fidelity did, but not that far behind. So we know that was a good revenue stream for us. So stay tuned, but it's a beautiful building. If you haven't seen it, it's actually a really nicely done building.
Kind of behind the Horseshoe Grill.
It is,
Yes.
right. And the other thing that's cool between them and Alex, who owns the Lake Barrington Barrington Commons, they've cleared all the junk out between those two and all the bucket loads and all that. And you'd just be surprised how open and how much nicer it looks over there. So there's good stuff happening over there. Of what used to be, I think they were hiding everything on purpose behind Hawthorne. Now they're actually trying to open up to have better visibility from the road and everything else. So if you haven't seen it, they're going to have a pretty elaborate grand opening. This is a soft opening, I think, and I was told in January. So you'll all be invited to that for the grand opening.
You sure?
Except for John. Staying over there on Pepper Road, the Wild Asparagus Catering has a new owner.
Yeah.
Right. Had a chance to meet her. Very excited to keep that going, keep the business alive. In fact, thinking about expanding that business into prepared meals for takeout, or
Yes.
you know where I'm talking about.
Loving that.
Cheese puffs.
So kind of like,
Jalapeno or regular?
and in fact, we got an email or something in the mail from them about, they do something really cool where for the holidays, they're touting that they'll, well,
You can pick up
or,
stuff.
yeah, or like prepared meals for 10. And so you finish by cooking them, but you get all the stuff and you just take it, cook it. And my wife was looking at it and saying, this is very reasonable for what they're doing. I mean, this is if you have to put a dinner party together for 10, you almost couldn't go to the grocery and plan your own menu and do it as cost effectively as that. So they said it's pretty cool. So they're actually, the resale place next door went out of business, they closed. And so the cool thing is Wild Asparagus may be pushing into that because they need some retail space to sell more prepared meals.
More sales tax.
More sales tax, thank you, President Richardson.
They've been sponsoring events at OPS too.
Yeah.
Tree lighting, yeah.
So it's great, the old owners moved to Florida.
Yeah, the new
But the
ones.
really exciting thing is the new owners very excited about continuing that success. So that's a good news story. We talked a little bit about activity on Route 14. Alex, you want to we continue our ongoing discussion. There are a number of things in the works that just aren't far enough along to talk about, but I get excited about them as being part of our overall brand image and what we're trying to do and leverage that area as effectively and efficiently as we can. So I'm hoping in the next 30 days we have something a little more meaningful to report on a bit of activity on Route 14 that's taking place right now, but a little too early to talk about. So it's all good news, meaning I think some of our efforts are taking root and you're just getting some momentum here in the village to get it going. So to be continued. Oh, the other thing is between now and our next meeting, I'll be reaching out to people individually to discuss some ideas that I have around, specifically around economic development. But in a nutshell, I want to lay out in a little bit more detail the seed of what we need to be doing. We talk about the comp plan really being the basis for everything we do, then economic development plan, and then overarching, these are all the tools in the toolbox, and then ultimately there's execution. And I wanted to tie this back to what Karen said about the economic development boot camp and some of the it's not all just, hey, am I going to get incentives? But when she talked about easy to do business with and business friendly, and there are other ways. Yeah, incentives are one thing, but the other thing is how are you perceived to do business with? And Karen and I have had some preliminary conversations on that because what I said is, it's one thing if Mayor Richardson and his colleagues stand up here and say, we want your business and we're business friendly, but the way we execute looks different in their eyes. There's a big problem. There's a big gap. It's like in any company and anywhere you do business. Leaders can step up and say things, but it takes discipline to deliver. So we're going to talk about our processes, our protocol, how we get that done, how we build discipline, and how we ensure that our actions, including that of our staff, reflect what we want to look like to the community out there. So there's opportunity, as there is in any community, for us to clean that up and make it clear on expectations. Well, what can the community expect from us, but also what do we expect from our staff to get that done. So now's the time. A hurdle is getting the comp plan done, another hurdle is getting Karen in the seat and giving her a little bit of time to catch her breath and then get busy on this stuff. So this stuff's going to start taking off.
What is the status on the comp plan?
I will let Karen.
Okay, later
talk
on.
about
Okay,
that. Trustee Griffiths.
Never mind.
Question,
Please.
As I drive by the speeding,
Microphone, Chris.
as I drive by the speeding now, where's the car wash?
It's not there.
Where is it? There is no car wash.
So that was
taken out.
That was taken out.
That's phase 2.
That's
Phase 2, so it's still coming, but it's just not in phase 2.
Still authorized.
It's authorized.
Okay, all right, that's,
But no timetable.
No timetable.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked me, and I said, well, it's right there, and I said, it's not.
Yeah, I apologize if that wasn't clear, but
I've got a dirty car.
You put a freeze down Thursday anyhow, don't worry.
Yeah, in warmer weather, you could get out there in a bathing suit, sponges, and I'll hold the sign out on 14.
It'd be a fundraising night.
Fundraiser for the village for open
That is
space.
not good.
I think I cracked the club nut for the first time. That's a picture there. There's certain things you can't unsee.
So
Wait, that's a refueling station.
So there was a question, were we shutting down the question of the status of the comp?
No, I'm happy to, Karen, you want to go and I have some other questions or comments on that too?
Sure, the status of the comp plan is, Housing Levine, is that how you pronounce the name?
Yeah, what was that one?
Yeah, Housing Levine has the, a draft with some edits that I made and some edits that President Richardson made, and they expect to have it back to us soon.
There's one part of the opening of chapter 4 that it's only a page and a half, but I'm going to do some further work on over the weekend, and then we're done. This has been a painful process.
Did I see mine?
I have been dissatisfied. No, please give them to her.
Okay, thank you.
I'm dissatisfied with the process. I'm dissatisfied with the contractor. But we got to get this done. He can't do the economic development stuff until it gets done. So come hell or high water, we're going to have
Well,
this
we can
ready to
do
go
it,
in
we can do it
January.
opportunistically and ad hocly, but we can't create the plan that we need without.
And, you know, part of it was, I think we can own some of the delays here. It took us a long time to get through that draft. The Plan Commission did a very respectable job editing the first cut. But Karen and I spent 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon in my office going over it page by page, and we were writing furiously on hard copy with red ink. And she did the tough job of translating that into track changes of Word. Part of the original problem was the draft we received was a PDF, which is not editable. And I've done a good job staying calm tonight, so I'm.
Yeah, just
Suffice to say, we had a lot of bumps, and we've resolved them. And I think we've got the comments pretty well done. I think part of the problem that these firms sometimes can struggle with is they've got a template, and it wasn't as personalized as perhaps we might have expected. So I think Karen and I have done an adequate job, and we'll accept anybody else's edits on this. There's only one really page and a half left that I want to work one more time. Otherwise, the rest of it's good to go, I think. And we wrote it from the perspective that you would need to use it, Andy, so hopefully you'll find it to be that way. And she can send you the same PDF, the same Word document that she sent me.
Yeah, I think what you would call your most recent, so we're not working from an old, so whatever you would say is your most recent.
Yeah, the challenge was, since they wrote it in, it wasn't a Word document, and they transferred it over to Word for us. So I can send it to you, just all the formatting is
Format
off.
is gone.
It's gone.
Slides out.
So,
It's just the Word document.
yeah.
But I'm now satisfied, to the important question you're raising, I'm now satisfied that the content will be an asset and a useful tool for you as per your discussion. However, there's still a last bite at the apple between now and the first of the year to add further edits. And Karen, if you want to recirculate it to everybody, I think that just would be appropriate.
Sure.
Kudos to the Planning Commission for making a good first cut at it. And, you know, part of it is, you all remember the presentation, the conversation we had about the branding and the various responsibilities and so forth. What we did was take those slides and drive them into the text of the plan. And that goes to the notion that you're talking about, that we have a process. And I was thinking about taking that PowerPoint, Andy, and putting in a locked version of it so you can send it to others so they can see it as maybe an abbreviated summary of our approach to things, so that they do know that there's a disciplined process around this. It's awfully important. I appreciate you saying it.
Okay.
Further questions for Andy on economic development?
Thank you, Mr.
External relations, I've got 2 items. Both are U.S. Conference of Mayors action items, also Illinois Municipal League. I, in my personal capacity as mayor, signed the U.S. Conference of Mayors letter on DACA, the Deferred Action in Childhood Arrivals. That's a point of personal conviction for me. I did it in my personal role as mayor of Lake Barrington. The other one is on what the acronym SALT, state and local taxes, as part of the tax bill. And there's a House Senate conference that has just begun convening, and I'm going to use Saturday as an event with Mr. Roscoe to chat with him about this as well. I have also also been interviewing a number of potential candidates to replace the administrator in her seat on this board. I have been in your role as trustee.
Over here, right?
Not in your role as No, Randy would commit homicide, and I'd be on the receiving end. And there's no way I'm going to get that money from Peggy a second time. So.
That was a typo. That was
Yeah,
that was a mouth.
earlier I called you Trustee Dalton Lang. It's just it's old habits that I heard. But I've been looking for. I have a couple of specific things in mind. First, someone who has younger school-age children, because everybody up here is an empty nester. And I think that additional perspective would be very valuable, especially for the community events that Trustee Thompson works on. Second one is, this is a non-diverse board by gender and by ethnicity. And so I'm looking for folks who would maybe make us a bit more diverse. I've had several conversations with folks. The difficulty is the talented people who call this community home are all very busy in their day jobs. And I do have, I think, what is a finalist candidate. The administrator is helping me bring that to conclusion. And I hope to have something to share with each of you by way of a recommendation. But my priorities are, to enhance the board with expanded demographics, especially the school-age children, because they have an understanding for village amenities, Jim, in the area that you're responsible for, and Chris, for you as well. That the splash park is not something I think about, except when I pull in the parking lot here. Younger parents with younger children have that priority, and our clerk is an example of that. So that's my report on external relations. 11E, Finance, HR, and Administration, Trustee Rigby.
No report.
Thank you. 11F, Open Space and Village Facilities, Trustee Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things that you meet with former trustee, now current village administrator, Dalton Lang. As I prefer to call her, Katie Lang. It's great. He's
Great news.
You heard her say,
I have one of our houses.
She's awesome. Yeah, she's great. We're to talk about Friar Farm and some other issues and facilities and things, et cetera. I am reviewing HVAC proposals for this building, and we have to talk. They sent you an apple, and an orange, and an orange.
Or a kumquat, yes.
Yes, sir. One of them is a kumquat, quite interestingly, but it's going to be somewhere, if we do the heat, let's say roughly 5. If we do the heat and the AC, probably about 9. And
There's a lot of variables, and this is just for the furnace that's by the office.
the others.
Furnace and
section.
irrigation. That for the last few years, we've been getting reports that the furnace is on its last legs, and I went back there and literally, it's like, rusted out. It's on its last legs, like, oh. So, in an effort for it to not go out on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve day.
So I'm going to also tap Mr. Trustee Rigby there as well to look at some of this when I pull all the numbers together with that. So it's good, but I was trying to make sense of them, and
We'll meet next week.
we'll talk. One other thing I think I mentioned before that I've been working on slowly, late at night, has to do with the comp plan, but if you were to take the parks and open space and the green space and expand it, go down at a lower level. So what I've been trying to do is to put together a listing of all of it in one, not document. Eventually, I would like it to be something very useful for families, for kids, to know there's a good bit of opportunity, not just here with the splash park and the tennis courts, but other areas. And that was my disappointment with this, was that it's not really useful. It's a great little map, but it doesn't show you what's where, what's important about it, why CFC owns this piece of land on 22 across from your neighborhood, and what's interesting and what can people do to utilize these things. So I am breaking down in a spreadsheet first, and then we'll have somebody have some GPS and help you do a little mapping. Who owns it, what it is, who owns it, how many acres, because none of the numbers agree. If you go to the Lake County site, if you go to the CFC, if you go to our pages and our maps and things, there's a difference there. And out of the 6.14 square miles in the village, you know, generally it's 5.83 is land and 198 acres are water. But now that's a lake, right, maybe some others, but it doesn't include the wetlands, and so there's all these different things. I mean, we have in our midst some of the most amazing thin wetlands, things of significant environmental importance that aren't other places. Whether it's the wildlife or the type of fins, the difference between the fin and the bog and these things. And that's something I'd like to get together. On one side, the other is recreational holes and opportunities in the community. If people express a concern, where can we play basketball? There's just this half goal on the tennis court. Where can my neighborhood walk? Where can my kids and I bike to play basketball and do these sorts of things?
Yeah, Canlan has evidenced in the past an openness to having residents use their facilities. It wasn't any kind of firm binding commitment, but there was an openness there. And it may be worthwhile on kind of a community relations as well as a facilities thing to map that out. You know, when my brother moved to suburban Dallas, his wife was telling us about, they had, remember welcome wagon when we were out here when you moved? And maybe a welcome wagon type of thing here would be good, where a tool like that would be useful so that you know exactly where the kids can go and play. Where can they ride bikes? And that makes a lot of sense. And kind of a new residence package.
Exactly, and this sort of guide would fold into our economic development, into realtors, into all the other things.
Yeah.
Because the number of acres of open, reserved green space that are within the community, plus that which abuts our community and connected. Because you go through the Lake County Forest Reserve, you go through a whole bunch of different areas and communities. So hopefully that will be something we can relate to in the spring. So, I had no idea what a can of worms it was until I started saying, hey, who owns this land? How much? And there's some interesting stuff.
Thank you. Questions for Trustee Mitchell? All right, 11G, public safety and gated communities. Trustee Scheller.
On January 31st at 8 a.m., BayCog is holding a tabletop exercise. Begin at 8 in the morning and go until noon at the Barrington Public Safety
What was the date
Building.
on that, John? I'm sorry. I'm going to put it in here right now. What was the date?
Wednesday, January 31st. The topic is a workaround communications in a disaster. Just think about it. What happens if all communications is out? Your cell phone doesn't work. Your phone doesn't work. There's no way of communicating. What do you do? And it's in the wintertime. Maybe we have some freezing rain. Maybe we have a blizzard. So anyhow, it's a tabletop exercise, and you're all invited to it, sitting with...
Starts at 8?
Starts at 8. And it's, we've invited the fire departments and public safety and all that to take part in this exercise. Because it is something. And that leads to, we did a number of years ago what they call an EOP, an emergency operating procedure for the village, which we brought up to date. They want us to bring our plan. Our plan really needs, I think, to be looked at again, because basically it's about this small. Some of these other communities around here have huge things. And basically ours says, we call the mayor and then call everyone else and get us out. So,
I'll be the mayor.
yeah.
And I'll be out of the country.
Yeah, you'll be out of the country. So, I think that's something that, number one, we take a look at again and try to update. We'll bring it to this meeting and it'll show us what efficiencies we have. And I think that's a project I'd like to move forward with, to update it and make it more realistic. So that we do have a plan. What happens if we have a tornado? What do we have as an emergency in here? What do we do? What's our procedure? So that's a major activity with regards to that.
Excuse me, where is that again, John?
That's at the public safety building in the village in Barrington, 8 a.m. That's obviously we've talked a little bit about the Wakanda Fire Protection District. Let me see. You talk about levies, I think we're going to talk about our levy here. Their levy is going up about 2.1% or about 4%. That was the request. But it's a fantastic department. A lot of our community depends upon the Wakanda Fire Protection District, the Chief Wall, but they have $4.3 million in their balance. But they have many firefighters, many personnel, and it's quite an operation. So that's why we invite you to be part of that. Or the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District has a $6.2 million in their operating budget, and their levy is, I forget what it's going up, but it's they're both going up. So when we talk about our levy and what we're doing here, but we do rely upon those two departments very, very much. As far as Lake County Sheriff's Department, the personnel have obviously emergency left. I saw the car go up the street. They just both, again, want to remind us about what's happening during the holidays. There's still a lot of people that leave their cars out front with their key fobs in them. I just learned the other day that people can actually reprogram your key fob, even if you're got it sit there, and they can start your car and go away with it. So it's crucial that you keep that fob not in the car, not out in the driveway, and do things with it, as well as some scams. People coming up to the front door and saying, I understand that we need an emergency, and you work around the place. So it's, a lot of stuff going on. So we're fortunate. We don't have a lot of activity, but we have to keep alert as to what that possibility can be. As far as gated communities, didn't hear any more from Andy Keener over at the Enclave. Kinsey is kind of backing out of it, but their construction continues. Winter snowplow contract in place with Apex. They're doing well. I do want to thank our administrator and Erica. There was an emergency over at Tallgrass last week. The bank that was providing the mortgage for someone that was going to close on their sale happened to be in Florida. They would not accept what they call a temporary occupancy, CO, because you need to have grass growing. Obviously, you don't have grass growing up here this time of year. They were ready to close and couldn't get approval from this Florida bank. Erica and Karen both got involved in it. They issued the final CO. They did hold back, there was a $1,000 bond money to ensure that the grass will be growing in the spring. It's not a practice we normally do, but due to the unique circumstances, thought best to do it. And obviously the Tallgrass people or Taylor Morrison were happy to have that closing. So I want to thank them for making that happen as a last minute deal. You're doing backflips to try to make
We
that
got a
happen.
nice thank you from the homeowner.
Yeah.
I mean, in Florida, the banks, they never deal with temporary COs. It's a thing of the Midwest and, cold climates. It's standard practice for most towns to have TCOs, so.
Dawn Dietlich is the owner, Deetlich.
That's right.
Thank you, so it's,
Dawn's friend and said she was moving to our neighborhood. She's delighted.
yeah.
She's a realtor.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
Super
and
sharp.
we try to, so thankful that we were able to solve that, because obviously we're trying to promote sales, and especially in Tallgrass, and we can make that happen, so.
And they will they're issued one new house permit and one's probably to be issued in a week.
So they're coming along pretty good. That's good news for us. And as far as LBS, we heard about all the veteran activities, but we had our first tree lighting. Never had a tree on the property that they lit, and they got a company to contribute a tree. They decorated it, put lights on it and ornaments right in front of the rec center, activity center,
The lodge.
and had a tree lighting. And so it's nice. It'd be nice. They had a tree lighting here sometime. But anyhow, it's a nice touch for LBS, and so that's about the main activity for gated communities at this point in time. But come on over Saturday at noon and take a look at the. Might be dark enough to light the tree. if it doesn't blow away, but, thank you.
Questions for Trustee Sheldon? Thank you. 11H is roads and infrastructure. The administrator, please.
Sure. I'd like to share with you all that Cuba Township is going to be using a new pre-wetting and anti-icing product this year called ThermoPoint. And it's more environmentally friendly and less corrosive than their standard practice of just salt. They anticipate that the average salt rate will be able to be reduced anywhere between 29 and 40%. This is good news for our water quality. Road salt only works to about 15 degrees, and this ThermoPoint will work to about minus 32 degrees. So when you see them pre-wetting, it helps keep the pavement a little bit warmer so that the salt can actually stick on it and melt, but it'll also work for a longer period of time. So it's a good deal.
No more prune juice or whatever it is?
Beet juice.
Beet juice.
Beet juice is another it's another, it's actually, beet juice might be even a little bit more environmentally friendly. In other roadway news, IDOT has updated a couple of their policies in the roadway manual, and the most significant change for us is it includes a requirement that if a local public agency is going to be using federal funding for professional services, that they must have their qualification-based selection, QBS, procedures in writing that meet the guidance that they just published. So typically, federal funds are used for bridge projects, and we could use federal funds like for the engineering services, but it also includes things like CMAQ and CMAQ funding, or if we get funding for our grants for any kind of intersection improvements or bicycle paths and facilities. So it's not, I don't think we have it in writing right this second, but it's not an emergency, but it's something that we're going to be looking toward, and I'll be getting together with Jim on that. So just an FYI. That's it.
Further questions for the administrator on roads and infrastructure? There is no agenda item 12 today, or old business. We can get through these ordinances and resolutions, and I think this is relative dispatch. 13A is the appropriations ordinance for the coming fiscal year. Tax law, excuse me, thank you. For the coming fiscal year, and I'll ask the treasurer, would you like to come up to the podium for this? Is there anything you want to set that?
I would say just not to steal Peggy's thunder, but.
Well, we discussed this under the treasurer's report, right? So it just, we're levying asking to levy $488,000 to the village residents, and that levy is towards police services.
This was the amount that was estimated last month by the resolution the board passed at that time.
Okay, are there questions for either the treasurer or the village attorney on this? If not, Chair would like a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Mitchell. What ordinance number? 22. An ordinance for the levy and assessment of property taxes for the village of Lake Barrington, Lake County, Illinois for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of May 2017, and ending on the 30th day of April 2018. And we had that motion moved by Trustee Rigby, seconded by Trustee Mitchell. Please call the roll.
Trustee Rigby?
Aye.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes. 14A, consideration of a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement for the cooperative traffic control by and among the villages of Tower Lakes, Village of North Barrington, and the Village of Lake Barrington. This concerns the school across from LBS on 59 and the maintenance of the safety. Are there any questions for this? If not, Chair would like a motion to approve resolution number 2017-R-31. Thank you. A resolution approving and authorizing an execution of an intergovernmental agreement for cooperative traffic control by and among the Village of Tower Lakes, the Village of North Barrington, and the Village of Lake Barrington. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Schaller, seconded by, I think Trustee Thompson. Thank you. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby?
Aye.
President
Yes,
Richardson?
thank you. 15A is consideration of employee health and dental insurance plan. This comes from our conversation with the committee of the whole previously. Are there any further questions prior to the question? If not, Chair would like a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Procedure requires me to state the thing for the record, but moved by Trustee Mitchell and I presume seconded by Trustee Rigby. Approve an employee health and dental plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield as administered by Better Business Planning Incorporated. Moved by trustee Mitchell, seconded by trustee Rigby. Clerk will call the roll.
And just to clarify, this is the plan with the flip deductible.
Correct.
So that should just be noted for the record.
Okay.
And there was a typo in the summary.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that to your attention. That was my bad. So in the summary, the fourth sentence, I said the rates vary by age, but in general, the HMO rate has risen by 28.5%, and the PPO plan has decreased by 0.6. That should be 24.1. The 0.6 reduction was the overall plan altogether when you took the balance of the HMO and PPO. So what they did is they raised the HMO and lowered the PPO.
So raised one by 28.5 and decreased the other by 24.
Right.
This is consistent with the conversation held during the committee of the whole.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And I believe that was moved by trustee Rigby and seconded by trustee Thompson, correct?
Other way around.
Other way around.
Brown, excuse me. Clerk, please call the roll.
Moved by trustee Rigby.
Aye.
Sorry, trustee Rigby, trustee Thompson,
Yes.
trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
trustee Schaller.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes. 15C drainage issues response guidelines. This is pursuant to the conversation. Excuse me, 15B, consideration to approve payment study proposal. Would the administrator like to briefly set this up?
Sure. You heard from interim administrator Balling a few months ago about retaining Joel Hamilton to update the pavement evaluation study for the village-owned roads. And the study was done last, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. So this would evaluate the pavement conditions and continue on that capital direction of what roads needed the worst, the best, I guess, however you want to put it. And there was just a little bit of a snafu. He did verbally tell them to proceed, and they have, and they've done about half the work. But then we noticed that it didn't come before the board for approval. So that's what this is for.
That sounds reasonable. Are there questions for the administrator?
I'm sorry, when was the last time we did this?
I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. And I have to check my notes. But and so that's fairly typical. What most towns do, they'll do a more in-depth analysis, and they do a visual observation every year, and then they go through again and do the radar and things like that to see how the pavement is holding up underneath the surface, because that's
Right.
really where your stability comes from. So,
Thank you.
All right, Chair would like a motion to approve an agreement with GHA in an amount not to exceed $7,000 to provide engineering services for the pavement evaluation and rating study of all village-maintained roadways, and authorize the village administrator to execute necessary documents. May I have a motion, please?
So,
Trustee Burke, seconded by trustee Thompson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Burke,
yes.
trustee Thompson,
Yes.
trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
trustee Rigby,
Aye.
trustee Schaller.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, thank you. Yes. 15C drainage issue response. This follows the conversation in the committee of the whole. Is there any question? Chair would like a motion to adopt the drainage issues response guidelines as presented during the committee.
So moved.
Trustee Burke, seconded by trustee Rigby. Thank you both. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Burke, trustee Rigby,
Aye.
trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes. 16 is the second opportunity. There's no one here seeking recognition. Mr. Baker, Ms. Dalton, we need a closed session.
Yes, a brief one for the purposes of discussing the sale of real estate, setting the price for the sale of real estate, and also for discussing the possible acquisition of real estate.
Chair would like a motion pursuant to Mr. Baker's statement. By trustee Thompson, second. By trustee Schaller. Thank you both. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Rigby. President Richardson.
Yes. Do we expect action coming after this?
We do not.
Okay, so. May